There's something that I see in the marketing world a lot that bugs the hell out of me. And it's like this crazy level of seriousness. Like you're almost like a philosopher. You're almost Jordan Peterson, and you're talking about your ad revenue in this dire,
and
dramatic.
Everybody has like this strategy that's just, it works so well. Yet things are always changing.
You could have thousands of PDFs, thousands of free PDFs, where you give up your email and end up with getting this PDF that I must have picked up so many that I've never actually even read. So I can't criticize them. I did just pick up I think I sent it to you, the How to Get 1 Million Followers, which I'm kind of interested in. But to your point, there's almost nothing that stays the same in marketing. And what could be working really well one day is completely obsolete the next day. And you're forced then to constantly pay attention, which is annoying. And I think that's why a lot of people don't last for a very long time, because you kind of learn some tricks, you get complacent, you do well, some changes happen, and you can never kind of figure it out. And we've both been doing email marketing for at least 10 years. Or let's not age ourselves too much. A little under, probably.
We've definitely consulted a pretty wide array of different kinds of companies, from publishers to people with like following on YouTube or social media. Yeah, stores, people with just leads that they got from selling products, things like that. We've talked to, lots of different industries, lots of different political backgrounds and strategies. And we've seen a couple different, what would you call them, fails or things not to do.
I like for a subject line, I like the idea of fails.
Social media fails, digital marketing fails, email marketing fails.
These fails that are very common. And that we've seen, I think, in a lot of situations we've made. And that's kind of the theme of these conversations, are kind of mistakes that we've made.
That we want to keep you from making.
Which I think is the best way to learn. Because they should be a little bit more actionable than just say kind of a general philosophy on subject lines.
Yes. So with that, let's say our number one fail is to become complacent and to stop testing. We've seen people with lead campaigns where they never even tested to see how well the leads were doing to start with.
People they find something that works, and it works well enough for that moment, and they just continue. And we've even seen people even allow the price to keep jumping up and just kind of continue the same exact thing. So anytime that you can make a test, and a lot of these programs now offer A/B splits, and this goes for digital marketing or newsletters, any or ad running. Anytime that you could run a test is beneficial, and you should periodically designate an amount of your ad budget that just goes into new testing, because you never know what you're going to find. And sometimes when you could reduce a cost 50% overnight, it's a pretty glorious moment. Exactly. The type that gets you to jump up and run to your boss or to your coworkers and say, "Hey, look what I did." So we've definitely seen that, and I think complacency also goes on the newsletter circuit for not continuing to get new names.
Yes.
A list really requires a new blood flow. It's dying in a very literal sense every single day that you're not adding names to it. No matter how great that content is, people just unsubscribe, and it's so upsetting. You see,
I take it a little bit personally.
Yeah.
People unsubscribe, especially if it's somebody that's from a list where they were very active, like a very active subscriber all of a sudden doesn't want it anymore. But I think it's important to realize how many emails that we all get every day. So even if somebody does sign up to your email newsletter or whatever you're using for email marketing, that eventually that email is going to be discarded. So they might get a new email. They might just have so many things that they signed up for that your emails start to get lost. So it's important to maybe even send updates every once in a while to see if people want to change the email that they're using.
Yeah.
In addition to bringing on new subscribers to, whether it's marketing campaigns or content pushes.
Something that we've always done that is a fun moment and pretty safe in terms of delivery and such is we send to people who have been recently engaged. For the most part, we really highlight and focus on that. People sometimes go to 30-day openers, 60-day clickers. We tend to like saving the money of not sending to useless names and really focusing on the people who are the best engaged. And that helps a great deal with delivery and what you're doing with each of the ESPs. But occasionally, we'll expand it out. And just maybe once a week or so, I like to expand it out and get a few more weeks activity in there just for 1 cent, especially if you're really feeling confident about the content of that cent and you're like, this would be a good one.
Yeah.
This would be
So let's call this fail segmenting. A lot of people fail to use segmenting. A lot of ESPs that we've tested out don't even have segmenting tools or top domain breakdowns. If you're a legitimate and you're taking email marketing seriously, you really need to be able to see a breakdown with different domains, because even if you're doing everything right, there's going to be issues certain days. And if you get like soft bounces on Gmail, for instance, you're going to want to cut back on it. And if you have no idea that that's happening, there's no way to fix issues or prevent huge issues from happening in the future. Email delivery is just getting harder every year, and they're getting more strict about what you need to do to, follow the rules and stay in the inbox.
We've even seen people stay in the inbox, and because their click rates weren't high enough, be kind of like have links blocked and images don't show up. And you'll see that as a direct inbox. And that's pretty wild with some of them. But yeah, to your point of like the top delivery chart is usually what we refer to it, where they actually give a breakdown by ESP. So you have your Yahoo, your AOL, Gmail, so on. And when people talk about delivery, I don't think they realize that you're actually talking about your delivery reputation amongst a bunch of different groups. So to have good delivery, you have to have good delivery with all of these different users. And when you're in a situation where you don't have that option, you don't have a lot of options.
No, in a lot of ESPs, you don't have a dedicated IP. So for people who don't know what IPs are, they're basically telephone lines that ESP or email sending platforms plug into to send mass email blasts. So these blasts usually are sending your emails along with all these other people's emails on the same IP. So even if everything is good on your side, somebody that's using the same IP could be doing something wrong, and you could be in trouble. You could see, decreases in opens and clicks because of that.
Yeah. That's a whole element of delivery that's almost like the next step.
Yeah.
Of like, there are things that are controllable, and then there are things that are kind of uncontrollable. And it's true when you're in these shared pools, and for the most part, especially when people are first starting up, they're always going to be using a service that has these shared pools. So their rates of spam complaints or unsubscribes are going to be taken very seriously, because you could be harming other people's sends, other clients. But yeah, the major issue there, and we've seen this over time, is a company will be good, and a bunch of people will use it and then misuse it, and then everybody on the thing suffers. But yeah, that's kind of that's something that you rarely have control over. But understanding that you're always going to be moving around. If
and
you're
there's always going to be things out of your control
Yeah.
that you have to worry about, because going into email marketing, a lot of people don't realize all the factors that go into it. So it's not just what you do, but it's the environment that you're in.
Yeah, and you see a lot of changes. So kind of always be ready to pack up and go somewhere else, because we've dealt with companies that were the best, and we were having a ton of fun with them, and they had great service, and all of a sudden they just decided to become horrible and hardly delivering anything, no matter what you do, and not being accountable, and you have to leave. And that's when labeling and segmenting is so important, because you'll be able to have access to your clickers, your openers, your recent ones. And then when you're warming up a list, it goes a lot quicker when you have that kind of data, and you could smash in the great quality ones and then just move on. But yeah, that's a
We've
major.
seen quite a few people that just gather emails and they send out every single email that they've ever gathered on these email blasts. And we believe it is important to segment. You have to segment. If you're a serious email marketer, you have to. So you have to make sure that you're sending, even if you want to send to every single person on your list, then you need to send more focused emails later on to improve your delivery, to make sure that you're only sending to active.
That was the glory days. I think that's in just not being able to change. There was a time when if you bought 100,000 emails, almost all of them would end up in an inbox. And that's a wild world to think about. And I guess too many people misused it.
The Wild West of email.
But yeah, at this point, you really need to be looking at your click-through rate as well as your open rate. So kind of like in a warm-up sequence, what would you say is like the first step before send?
I think it's important to remember, like we were talking about complaints and delivery. Everything is usually done in percentages. So when you're doing a warm up, like we don't want to send a large bunch of emails that are going to complain and get you in trouble right away. But you also don't want to send so few that if you get one complaint, that it's going to mess up everything. So I think usually where I like to start off is like 5,000 to 10,000 if you have them. That seems to be pretty safe.
Yeah, I've fallen into that trap before of doing it too small. Mm-hmm. And it's true, it is all based on percentages. So you'll have 10 names of Comcast and one person complains, and all of a sudden you have a 10% complaint rate. And then you're going to have an awkward conversation with a postmaster where you're going to have to beg him to say, I don't understand how this happened. But we were just talking before clicking the play button about an acquisition campaign that we're doing, and it's clear as day that it's saying please fill out your name and your email to receive this newsletter. It's strictly for a newsletter. And, we get complaints.
Yeah,
Not a lot.
We get unsubscribes.
We get a lot of unsubscribes. We get the complaints. And it's true. You're saying to yourself, geez, at that.
There's no
it's
level. There's no level of protecting yourself where you're gonna not have anybody that you upset.
Yeah, somebody's
That's
just gonna be
the
mad.
nature of journalism and marketing in general. Like even if somebody signs up, they might not be happy with maybe the content that you're sending, maybe the amount that you're sending. So it's important to see how people are interacting with you. If you start to see a lot of people unsubscribing, maybe that means you need to change what you're doing. If you care about losing subscribers, maybe not go over things that are upsetting to people.
Yeah, we've definitely seen just having to change content in certain lists to avoid avoid certain things. And that's where, you're going to be looking at your domains in these first sentence individually. And you're going to have to see between, at this point, you really want to be getting almost 20% open rates on each of them, but at least 14, 16% means typically, for instance, with Gmail, that you're probably in promotions. 20 plus means that you're probably in the inbox. And
if you are cold emailing, I say like 20% would be good. But if you're actually getting people to opt into your email, then you should be getting at least 30 to 40% open rates on your emails. You don't want to send a large enough email that are like, a large enough subscriber list that you're going to be getting only 20 to 30% opens, because that's going to hurt your delivery. Yeah,
when it starts to drop below 30 here, we start to try to figure out segmenting changes, and that's kind of your marker there. So you really have to keep an eye out for it, and then every one of the companies has different rules. So, but typically what we do is, if we're not getting into the inbox, we'll try to find any openers or clicks that have been established for that Gmail, for instance, and just send to the most recent one for a little while. And they're usually receptive to, if you make a mistake and blast out a couple of thousand and they're going to spam, if you have good behavior after that and kind of tighten things up, they usually work out. And there's a fluctuation with that, but it has to be monitored every single day.
It's important to realize that with IPs, it's not just you're definitely going to get in. You have to kind of prove yourself on certain ones. We use Campaigner, for instance, and we find that Campaigners' IPs have a pretty decent reputation. So from the get-go, you're going to see 50%, 60% open rates on most of our lists. Whereas if you go to maybe something that's a little less expensive, you might have to work your way up. So it doesn't mean that your data is wrong. It doesn't mean that you're doing the wrong thing necessarily. But these are all factors that you have to think about, whether or not you want to pay for better reputation and not have to go through the process of proving yourself, or if you want to save and work a little bit harder on these deliveries.
And when you think about it too, when you're buying names, when you're running acquisition, you're saving money when those people actually click and actually get the email. So we've seen a ton of people who have trouble with Gmail, but if you're buying names or running ads, half of them, and it seems like it just keeps going up, will be Gmail. So you end up with a situation where they can't deliver you can't function as a business if you're not able to deliver to Gmail. And it really, it's going to hurt you 20, 30% if you can't deliver to Yahoo. So every one of these things, so you're paying a little bit more sometimes for a service to be able to get the delivery. But if you're running the business correctly, you're probably going to be saving money long term, because you're not going to have to throw away all of your names.
Exactly. So we'll call this number 3, cost versus benefit. So a lot of people don't do the calculations necessary to see if it's worth doing, is it worth sending this large segment? Is it worth sending third parties if you see so many people unsubscribe and you're not making money off of them?
Don't just assume that the money at the end of the month, you're going to look at things and you're going to be happy.
Exactly. If you spend all this money on leads, don't just assume it's going to make all of your ad revenue go up, because it might not. You need to check on it.
Yeah, you need to see that they're actually going on the list and becoming engaged members on the list. Otherwise, you're just wasting your money. And that's very common. And kind of on that topic, we've tried a lot of different acquisition sources over the years, and we've definitely seen differences. I think you'd agree that the best we've ever seen was your Google ads.
Google
the response
seems to be better than a lot of social media, and we've also had a lot of luck with just using other email publishers or people who have
Well,
followers or something.
that's
like
the
that.
best one, actually.
Yeah.
That's the best one. In terms of ads, I think Google. I've been seeing a lot of potential with YouTube. That's doing very well. But the social media ads are a little bit suspect. I don't know if they just send to the same people who always sign up for everything. We've tried a lot of different variations. We've gotten 20 to 30% opens on some, but the very low clicks, they're not maybe newsletter people. Whereas if you acquire your audience through other people's newsletter, you have the best chance of them really loving what you're doing and staying long-term and engaging.
I think it's also that on Facebook, when you're having people fill out forms, they might not give you the email that they use all the time. Most people don't want to get anything to their email. It's very hard to get people to sign up for emails. A lot of lead campaigns will use polls or something else where you're not actually signing up, but it's like
It's got some print
an
on it.
add-on. Yeah, it's some kind of, it's going to be a part of it is that you're going to be added to a list.
If you want your survey vote counted,
Yeah.
provide your list for the feedback. Yeah, there are a lot of things like that. That makes sense that people just get a little bit worried. And when we acquire directly through ads on other people's newsletter, I think that's the one that they're using currently. So you have a little benefit in that. And that's, of course, going to be a little bit more expensive, but that goes back to your cost benefits.
Yeah, you don't want to cut corners. We've seen people try to push too many ads and upset people. We've seen cutting corners with lead acquisition and getting people who don't want to sign up. So it's important to be careful with the kind of leads that you bring on. By bringing on people who are complaining and don't want to be a part of your list, you could be hurting yourself. So if you do have legitimate signups, you could be ruining all of that and ruining your reputation by just adding a few people who really, really don't want to be on your list.
And like you were saying, sometimes people are malicious on social media and somehow know a spam trap or give a
we've
wrong
all seen
name.
how people act on the internet.
So you're running a risk. I like to go very slowly, even with acquisition names. At different points, especially on the social media, just to kind of make sure that doesn't happen and the issues. But then list fatigue, as you were mentioning, of just sending too much. You don't want to send too little, you don't want to spend too much.
Yeah.
And that goes to just how much money do you need to keep this machine running? And then realize, is it capable?
And you can do all of that by doing the test that we talked about earlier. So you can see if sending this much content is making more money, if sending ads are making money, if it's worth it.
What the best percentage of that is.
Unsubscribes you're getting, exactly.
And we've seen that change a lot over the years of how what was acceptable. People used to do kind of too content and too addy kind of emails. And now it's tough to send that twice. Because an ad email will always have a much lower click rate than a content email. So when you're sending something that's to get like a service or to get an advertisement, you're always going to have a lower CTR. So if you have too many of those, your delivery is going to be going down, and then they're not going to get the content, and it's a vicious spiral.
Yeah, most people choose to do a newsletter even if they're a straight email marketing service, just because even if it's like about houses or about financial information or business information, just giving somebody content where you're not actually trying to sell them, it seems to make people a little bit happier. So if you are just selling a product, it might be worth adding an email in there that has something to do with your industry.
Yeah, see, that goes to the complacency too, and I think of that type of client. That for most of them, they're especially the ones that are doing very well. They have this product, they're making enough money that they're happy with. They just don't have that energy to go and sit down and produce content. So that's something that we've done for a lot of people, is kind of build a brand, build a content structure around their product, to the exact type of people that they want to be selling to, and kind of build up a culture like that. And people are going to unsubscribe from your list if every day they get a letter that just says something to do with sales. But if you can give them 2, or you can give 1 with a bunch of ads for your product that also has some cool video, some cool article, that's how to keep people on your list for a long, long time, and buy your products for a long time, because you're going to be top of mind. So that's
it's a little psychology trick from 2 psych majors.
Yes.
That it's important to think about how what you're doing is going to affect your audience. And if you're sending only ads and that's how they're going to perceive you, then it's more likely that they're going to unsubscribe. If you're sending content, it seems more of like a give and take relationship, where they get a little content from you and then you send an ad and they're okay with it because you're also sending them content. So there's also another side of it where people will just send newsletters, like a blogger, where you're getting people to sign up for newsletters. I actually subscribe to the New York Times, and this is where I've kind of gotten a strategy of putting ads in the actual newsletter. Yeah. They use Live Intent. We use a couple different companies. But to actually put a marked sponsored content piece in your newsletter might be a good way to offset some of the costs.
Yeah, justify more acquisition, or a better service.
And then you don't always have to charge people for subscriptions or to like access the information on your page. It makes it easier to have, like a push on Facebook, where you'll have a bunch of people go to your site and you're going to get paid based off of clicks on ads and things like that, instead of just having to get subscription fees. Yeah,
and we like to justify the costs immediately, and that's a great way of doing it, that you could really say, okay, we make X amount every send, it costs this much, and there's a profit even if there are no sales. And that's the way to really keep things rolling for a while, because then there's no reason not to send, if you can make it a little bit profitable.
As funny as you would, as it is to think about, a lot of marketers aren't actually making as much money as they could. We've seen people who have huge email lists or huge social media followings, and they really don't use the data as much as they could. There's a lot of ways that people waste it, whether it's not worrying about site speed, or having ads on a website, or having ads on a newsletter, or anything like that, having a workflow when you have new subscribers come in, where maybe you send them a couple offers or a couple of your most active pieces, where they'll hopefully read it and maybe click on an ad.
Yeah, not keeping the relationship going is kind of a major issue there. And that's what I think we would say is the specialization of good newsletter or good email marketing, is that you're keeping this relationship going. It's not a relationship in the sense of one-on-one, but I almost consider them all my friends.
Yeah, and
on
that's
the
how
newsletter.
You shouldn't just think of them as
suckers.
These suckers that you, harass all the time with emails. You should be thinking of it as a conversation where you're interacting with each other. And you shouldn't be just focused on trying to make them look at content that you want them to see, but maybe see what they're interested in.
Yeah, watch that. I like asking them to reply or comment, but I love replies, and they're really valuable for your delivery, because the ESPs look at it they're having this conversation, so of course they really like this domain sound good. So there's no reason in your email to say, reply right now. And if you start replying back to them, or you have a team members that specifically look at these and have these engagements with these people, that creates a loyal fan for a long, long time. That goes a long way, because most of the time those reply monitors it's completely unmonitored. They do have the do not reply. If somebody's emailing you, I've always felt, and has a do not reply, that's kind of rude.
Yeah.
That's like calling you and saying, "Don't call me." Like, you're having this conversation, so why not? Why not ask them, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Tell them back. And like I said, whether you do it or you have somebody else do it, it's nice to have that engagement. Look at them like friends, not just somebody that you can burn through. That's what we see all the time. People say, "Okay, we have a 30-day, just aggressive funnel, and we smash them 8 times a day for 30 days, probably burning up a lot of
You might
those
make
fees."
a bunch of money at first, but instead of having a project that is sustainable, that you can make money off of for years and years, is something that you just ruined, and you ruined your reputation, and maybe even did something that you could get in trouble with.
Yeah.
There's a lot of laws nowadays with email marketing that you need to be aware of.
How many times do you kind of have a bad taste in your mouth signing up for a product, and then you get bombarded with emails? And it's like, geez, they're unlikable. All of a sudden, I'm finding this guy unlikable.
Anybody that's like a new email marketer or digital marketer coming into the game, I would tell them to try to be as legitimate as possible. Don't cut corners. Get leads the right way, or try to find something that's actually going to entertain people and get people interested. Don't just try to make a quick buck. Try to build something that's sustainable, and look at the data and react and change what you're doing based off of what you're seeing your list do.
Yeah, think about first impressions too. I've always thought that I never want to send an ad to somebody first. I don't want the first thing that they ever get from me to just be an ad. I think what they should be getting is something valuable to them, whether it's just for the sake of being interesting. But really, there are things we'll send to our list that are people that have been there. So you can push the envelope a little bit more. You can talk to them in a more direct way about trying to push a sale. But for that first one, that's going to mean so much. And it's going to help your delivery a lot too, if people are opening up at high rates and clicking on that first one. So your first email needs to just be something that you feel is not going to annoy your people, that's going to get them crazy about clicking.
That somehow is a benefit to them, whether it's content information or you have some kind of offer, like a special offer, maybe for a new sign up. Make them feel like they're getting something out of being on your list. This is something that's important to just think of in general.
Yeah, if there are any kind of freebies or something that you're able to incorporate while still making money, then it's a pretty good idea of like a bracelet or something, or even a situation where they were just paying for shipping and handling or something like that. There are some ways of going for that smaller item, or like you've earned yourself a free thing. We've seen people make back enough money to completely pay for the program with their first email. But and then I guess there's the final thing now that probably should be the first thing before anything, is just your template. For your send. Now, a lot of companies, they actually will do it for you, which is nice. Well, not do it for you, but they give you a nice templating system, which is drag and drop. A drag and drop. And it used to be harder. You actually had to used to sit down like a lunatic and
create a code.
Yeah, create an HTML code and look at it a million times in your Firefox, and then it would deliver the stuff and it wouldn't look that good. So any kind of program that we've been talking about different ESPs, any kind of program, we liked Email on Acid, that can actually go in and see what it looks like on each different one. And this is less of a problem.
Check on the desktop and mobile version.
That's probably, that's vital. At this point, we see, it seems like every year 10% or more of our list become mobile. For better or worse. It just seems like there are more. So if you're not looking good on mobile, and you might put an ad into your thing that looks totally normal on your screen, and that ad, because of the image not having a proper attribute, just destroys your email, and it looks ridiculous, and it's long and
Always
broken.
Test it to yourself first.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to test it on something like Email and Acid where you can see different previews from like Outlook to Gmail to Yahoo, at least send it to yourself.
Yeah, you can make an email for
exactly.
each. Yeah.
Make a Gmail, make a Yahoo, and send it to those. These little things that take a couple seconds that people just don't want to do, they're going to save you in the long run, and you're going to be happy that you did it.
Yeah, double check. It's a big deal to send an email. And so if you have an email with an error, errors eat me alive.
Me too.
When I see...
Maybe if like a link doesn't work or something in your email.
Or I'll just have the wrong word in the subject line. And nobody wants to talk to you more than when you get a wrong word in a subject line or spell something wrong. All of a sudden your list will erupt. Don't you mean this, you illiterate? I'm like, I thought we were friends. I just made a little mistake. But yeah, it's always worth double checking. You don't know. We saw one time in a news sphere. Was it where John McCain was from?
Yeah, so you don't
John
want to just
McCain
worry
gate.
about your reputation on the IPs. You need to worry about your reputation with your subscribers. Like if they read something and they're like, oh my gosh, like are these professionals or are they not? Like,
Yeah.
are they going to trust your brand if you send them messed up newsletters all the time or messed up emails?
Yeah. I mean, if somebody's sending you something and it's broken or it's constantly spelled wrong, it's a huge deal. And that's why, for a lot of people, the idea of paying that much attention to getting this done in a professional manner, I mean, frankly, a lot of people can't write at a professional level. You know, like there are a lot of successful businessmen that would have a great amount of difficulty with simply just producing 4 or 5 paragraphs of grammatically perfect writing. You know, it happens to be a specialty that you don't
know what you can and what you need.
And maybe
to
you could do it, but
outsource.
if your time is worth more than what you could pay somebody else to do it, then why are you going to sit there and try to become an English major?
We tell ourselves this all the time.
I try to do
From
everything.
getting ads on Facebook or Google, or from creating content. Sometimes you need to just ask for help or find somewhere that you can outsource tasks.
Yeah. Figure out what you're best at and what you really don't want to do, and you'd be surprised by how quick it goes. But yeah, I think that's a good first edition in our series of mistakes that we've made and lessons to learn.
With all of your endeavors.
Yes, please reach out and message us any questions that you have, and we'll be happy to get back to you and start a dialogue.